healthy to me was being the thinnest that you could. Beauty was thin, thin was beauty, and that has definitely evolved, especially over the last 8 years. Within all of us, there are two wolves. There is one that feeds our sadness, our anxiousness, our worry, and then there's the other one that sees joy and happiness and fulfillment. And the one that grows is the one you feed. And I think in previous lifetimes, in my teens, whatever, I was definitely feeding the negative wolf, and it wasn't working for me. So the only other option was to feed the one that is going to give me joy, right? There's no point in aspiring to nothing. Like, you have to be able to see where you're going and carve that path. And it might be straight sometimes, it might be really, really winding. And sometimes your dreams evolve as a result of what comes on the way to them, and that's okay as well. To me, healthy now is kind of a holistic approach that covers your overall wellness, how your immune system's working, your gut microbiome, but also how you show up as a person in terms of feeling all of your emotions, being fit and active and present. And I think it excites me to talk about what is healthy, because it's changed so much from being extremely self-destructive to now being what I think is a superpower.
Welcome back to Rocket Pod. On today's show, we're joined by Steph Elswood. Steph is a wellness entrepreneur, influencer. She talks to us about transitioning from dancer to influencer to entrepreneur. She is also the founder of Karu's non-alcoholic spirit company. Steph is also a mental health advocate, and she discusses her journey from when she was a young girl to where she is today. It's a very honest discussion from the heart. Welcome, Steph. Welcome, Steph.
Thank you for having me. How are you?
Very, very good. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Thanks for doing this with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and just for our listeners out there, so Steph, I think, got a message at, well, it was 6 p.m. last night or something, and it was and amazingly made it along as one of our other guests got stranded in the US. So yeah, thank you, Steph, for just pulling out the stops and being here.
No, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, so if we could just start off with just who you are. This is a brand new audience, so who are you, what do you do, and what would you like to tell the world?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I am Steph, and I've been an online creator for the last 8 years. I started an Instagram page as a recovery from an eating disorder as I was training to be a professional dancer.
Okay.
And during that time, I have completely fallen into this industry. I've got no background in marketing or advertisements or anything like that. And I have spent the last 8 years building a platform on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all the platforms that we know and love. And through that, I have had some incredible opportunities, whether that's working with brands that I could only dream of, traveling to places I could only dream of, and also having the opportunity to launch my own businesses and my own event series. So at the moment, I am still being a full-time content creator, but on the side, I have a women's empowerment dance event series called Stay Sassy, which started in 2017 in honour of my nan who passed away. Her catchphrase was Stay Sassy, and I kind of wanted to keep that alive.
Okay.
And then in 2019, I launched a sustainable e-commerce store called Sustainable. And that has products made from bamboo, reusable cutlery sets, reusable bakeware, trying to make sustainable, reusable pieces accessible, attractive for a younger audience. And then earlier this year, I have been working on it for about 2.5 years. I launched a non-alcoholic spirit brand called Karu's.
Oh, okay.
Which is very exciting, and it's now my full-time desk job.
Love
which
the name.
is thank you. So it's actually a spin off of an old English word meaning a noisy, lively drinking party. Because I've been sober for just over 4 years, I wanted to create something that emulated everything I believed in terms of still going out, socialising, having your community, but maybe without the alcohol. And then as part of the launch for Karu's, I wanted to put on a one-off Stay Sassy event with a girl called Millie Gooch, who actually has a community of sober women. And we were going to put on a very small event, which grew after one Zoom call into hiring the entire venue of Ministry of Sound.
Wow.
And we hosted an alcohol-free day festival for women. and it was such a success. We had crews behind the boozeless bar. We decided to call it Dry Disco, and we have now decided to make that an event series that we're looking to grow and scale over the next few years.
How exciting. Actually, that makes sense. The serendipity of this, even us connecting through Guy Hipwell.
Yes.
I know that he was the chairman of Liars, another big spirit brand, and
Yes.
he spoke really highly of you, and it's really lovely to have you on the show. Actually, I'm teetotal as well, so we could maybe dig into the benefits of not drinking.
Yes, I would
because
love
it's
that.
kind of a bit crazy, isn't it? There's always one crazy person. I think you have to be crazier almost to not drink.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can have fun, obviously, like you said, going out and not drinking. And it's really nice that you threaded some of your grandma into some of your I guess your greater purpose and some of your work, which is really nice.
I think
I'm sure she'll be very proud.
Oh, thank you. I think with whatever venture you go into, you have to have a strong enough why and a strong enough driving force. And I think her legacy for me was one of my biggest driving forces for that particular events company. So
That's really interesting. I have a question for you. Zan and I talked about it. So what does healthy mean to you?
oh, that's a good
When we say the word
question.
healthy, what comes to mind?
Well, it's transitioned quite a lot. So when I was younger, I'm sure it's down to kind of media and advertising and movies and what you see in big media. Healthy to me was being the thinnest that you could. Beauty was thin. Thin was beauty, and that has definitely evolved, especially over the last 8 years. So coming out of kind of this performing industry where there are so many disordered eating patterns to try and fit a certain mold, I actually had to explore the complete opposite and fuel my body with more food that I'd ever eaten before. So to me, healthy now is kind of a holistic approach that covers your overall wellness, how your immune system's working, your gut microbiome, but also how you show up as a person in terms of feeling all of your emotions, being fit and active and present. And I think it's such a broad spectrum to me. And I think it excites me to talk about what is healthy, because it's changed so much from being extremely self-destructive to now being what I think is a superpower.
Yeah, you're a vegan, yes?
Plant-based, yes.
Plant-based. So if you'd like to deconstruct a little bit of the misconceptions surrounding it and
Yeah, of
your
course.
reasons as to why you chose to transition.
Yeah, I think sometimes I fear that when I speak about being sober and plant-based, that it sounds like a huge extreme. And I think I never want it to come across like that. I never want someone to listen and think, oh, that's so unreachable, that's so unattainable. I think for me, it's fit into my lifestyle so seamlessly that I will go to the maximum because I love it. Yeah. But even having a plant-based meal a week or a plant-based day a week can still be really beneficial. So I kind of just wanted to preface that before I begin. But I've been plant-based now for 5 years, and the kind of difference between vegan and plant-based is if you are vegan, you will not use anything that comes from an animal ever. You won't wear leather shoes, you won't use leather bags, you won't use skin products that have honey in it or anything like that. Won't use products that are tested on animals. And my diet is completely plant-based. I don't eat dairy, I don't eat eggs, I don't eat meat. But I still have pieces in my wardrobe from before, when I was even had the awareness of what plant-based or veganism was. And for me, my entire approach to this life is just living the best I can and doing the best I can. And to me, it felt more wasteful to throw away these pieces that existed. Some of them were in my mum's wardrobe, so they're older than me. And it felt wasteful to throw those away and not use them. So I can't label myself as a vegan, because someone will say something like, oh, you're advertising leather by wearing it all the time. And I completely understand and respect that. But it would be worse to then buy new fake leather that could potentially end up in landfill. So to me, it's trying to find a sustainable way to live my truth in a way that's authentic to me, my lifestyle, and not unsustainable for me long term.
Yeah, and that's aligned with your values. So you're not trying to be something you're not. So it's almost like, because there's a lot of I think to live your authentic self, it takes courage sometimes, but we're also unique, and that's kind of our superpowers, isn't it? It's just knowing that being ourselves and coming up with our own ideas that are personal to us. I think you also, the comment about being extreme, and because I guess the danger is you don't want to alienate yourself from anyone to kind of even relate to you on any level. But the fact that someone can feel really happy about their porridge and bananas in the morning, because that's one meal that they're not, that might be consuming meat. And it's just, it's just the habits and just being aware that you can do little things and work towards a plant-based diet if that's something that is making you feel good, and you have more energy or whatever the benefits are.
And I think I am a huge advocate for celebrating those small wins, and I can't sit here and be a preachy vegan or a preachy plant-based person because I ate meat for 20 years and I was an absolute carnivore, so I can't then sit here and act like I'm this holier than thou person. And I think you need to do something that fits into your lifestyle that isn't taking away from your life. So if you can incorporate, like you said, porridge and banana in the morning, it's delicious, or beans on toast, just use a plant-based spread or something like that, it's still going to make an impact to whether it's your health, your energy levels, or the planet. And that's kind of the message I'd like to push more, rather than being this perfect person that just can't exist.
Yeah, so you touched on your outfits, and
yes.
I think your latest post on Instagram is that you're
serial outfit repeater. Yes.
I can relate
I've
to
never
that.
heard of that.
I can relate to that as well.
I've read that in Zona's notes, so what is that? I don't even understand.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to elaborate on that a little bit, because I can relate to that quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I think it's important because there's fast fashion and people just, splashing money on new outfits just to please other people.
Yes.
So why do you sort of, subscribe to that whole lifestyle of...
Yeah, well, I think there is a pressure with the rise of social media and incredible content creators that share fashion inspiration. There's this constant need, I think, in all of us to buy more and have more and keep up to date with trends, which I understand, but it is feeding into the fast fashion industry because not everyone can afford designer pieces that they'll wear again and again and again, but they can afford the dupes. And unfortunately, trend pieces aren't timeless. They don't last forever. And I think there is sometimes a pressure that with every big social occasion, you need a new outfit and you need to be seen in something that you've not worn before. And one, it's expensive to maintain and it's exhausting. And for me, I have set uniforms. So like if I'm going to a business meeting that's semi-casual, I've got a uniform that I know I can grab. It's one less decision to make. It's something that I know I feel comfortable in. I'll wear again and again. It's cheaper, it's more sustainable. And it really makes me think about what I'm adding into my wardrobe. And I think if I'm going to wear this once, I don't want it. Whereas if I'm going to wear it time and time again, I don't care who's seen me in it before. I just strongly am an advocate for outfit repeating.
What's one of your go-to responses when somebody says, "Haven't you? I swear I've seen you wear that yesterday."
Yeah, I will say cost per wear. If it's an expensive outfit, I'll be like, I'm wearing this as much as I physically can because I paid for this, and I think it makes you respect your clothes, and also I can probably remember most of the times that I've worn them, and you're attached, you can attach memories to visual things that you see. So I can be like, oh, I remember wearing this outfit, for example, the post last night, I've worn it on family holidays that I'll remember, and I remember the restaurant we went to that night, and it does unlock a memory every time you put it on, and you know that you're going to feel comfortable and confident, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, the cost per wear thing is interesting because that's how I justify when I buy an expensive pair of jeans
Yeah.
or shoes.
It's an investment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm also guilty as charged. This morning, it was that shirt I went to put on was the shirt I wore in the last podcast interview. So when my daughter said, "You can't wear that, Dad," it's like, okay, you're right. So.
But even I see it with my mum as well, and bless her, she's a bit of a hoarder, but she has got pieces that are absolutely stunning that don't fit her anymore but are my size perfectly, and I love going into her wardrobe and being like, are you ever going to wear this again? And she says no, and I take it and she lets me have it, and it's something unique that no one else will have because it's 40 years old, and I love it, and I think it's so unique and it tells a story. And I think the problem with fast fashion is we've lost that. And I think it's really important to wear something that you feel good in, that you want to wear again.
Yeah, that's really nice.
So your parents and your grandma, you know, a lot of what you do is dedicated to her. How is it like? Because you used to be a dancer, and then you transitioned into this job. So were they supportive of you, or did they understand, or how was that whole situation like, talking to them about it when you were transitioning?
Well, I think we had a bit of a transition earlier on as well, because I went from a very academic all-girls school at the age of 14 to a performing arts school, and I had to beg my parents for about 2 years to let me do this, because I went from an academic school with maybe 100 girls in my year to a vocational school that had probably about 25. So it was a much smaller school, and I went from doing a full day of academics into a half day of academics and a half day of vocational training. So my parents have always allowed me to dream big, and they've always pushed me in the direction of my dreams. However, there's always been a caveat to it. For example, when they let me go to this performing arts school, they said, you are more like, we will encourage you and support you through this, but you have to keep your grades up.
Right.
So it's always kind of been drilled into me that you can dream big, you can make your dreams happen, but you have to bloody work for it. Like, it's not going to come easy. You're not going to coast through. And I think at school, I didn't appreciate it, because whilst all of my peers were winning awards at the end of the year for best dancer, best actress, best singer, which is what we were there to do. It was like Fame Academy. It was amazing. But I was winning most academic, which isn't cool. It's not exciting when you're 15 to be the most academic of the year, but it's because my parents really pushed into me that if you're going to do this, you have to do it all. So I think shortly after that, I changed to a dance college where I got a diploma in musical theatre and went into the industry and did some amazing dream jobs. But the industry is tough. You can be in work, you can be dancing at the O2 Arena one night and then out of work for 6 months next. You can be in a musical consistently for 6 months, and then something of your casting doesn't come into the West End for years. So it's really tough industry. And with my history with mental health issues, I fell out of love with it. I fell out of love with how it made me feel. For every yes, you get about 15 no's. So it's a really tough industry. And when I fell into the social media side of things, I had a job lined up for performing that was a tour around Asia, but I would have come back. Yes, I'd have a credit on my CV, but I wouldn't have progressed too much further in my career. Or an opportunity with an amazing brand came up for social media, something I'd never done before. So I was kind of sat with these two decisions, and my parents let me make that decision on my own. Obviously, they'd helped to fund my dance training and really supported me, picking me up late from rehearsals and all of that stuff for so many years. They were like, you have to make this decision. And I went down the social media route because I was using this platform, showing up as myself, not having to try and fit into anyone's box or costume or anything like that. And I was like, I'd really love to pursue this venture. And if nothing happens, then at least I tried it. And when it started to take off, they're so supportive. And I was so new to it, and I was still living at home at the time, that they learned as much as I did because they were living through it with me. So now I'd say they're a huge part of my focus group, who I would go to ask questions and advice. And my mum sometimes spell checks my captions and makes sure that it says what I want it to say. So they're very involved in the sense that they have really, really helped in my success, I think.
It's really nice to know that you had that, I guess, emotional support as well through the journey, and they believed in you, obviously. And because I almost think it's like when you try something new, it's like what's difficult now, it gets easier later. But you know, there's no guarantees, is there? But it's nice you had that support. I mean, I have 3 teenage daughters, and actually the youngest one wants to go to performing arts school. She told me last night, actually. So it was she's actually a talented street dancer, but she's very sensitive, and it's like it's like I think, in fact, that might be a good segue to what's your view on mentorship? Obviously, your parents were there to support you and guide you, and even saying that hey, if you're going to this school, you've got to do well in your academics. What can you comment on mentorship, your experience with it? Do you mentor anyone in your current circle, any younger people? Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I don't personally mentor anyone at the moment. I think it's something I'd love to look into, because I think through my life I've had unofficial mentors throughout, and in every phase and chapter there has been a focal person that I look up to and that I know I could ask questions to. So for example, when I first started going to dance classes on a Saturday, I was a shy little 4-year-old that was a mummy and daddy's girl that just wouldn't speak to strangers. And I turned up to my dance class on a Saturday, and there was a teacher there, and I was the only person in the class. And she sat with me before the class started, and she asked me questions, and she's told me this story a million times. She was like, so Stephanie, have you ever danced before? And apparently I stood up and said, no, but I've done gymnastics and started doing cartwheels. And I wish I had that confidence now, just to be like, yeah, this is what I do, I'm going to show you. But she was just she taught me from the age of 4 to 16, and she helped me prep for all of my dance college auditions and really, really pushed me. Like, I remember when I was in the 9 to 11 dance classes, she asked me to go into the 14 plus. She really wanted to push me. And it's people like that within my life that I'm always so grateful for. And they may only be in my life for a short period, but I just love learning from people that know more than me, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And I think looking up to people is so important throughout any journey.
Yeah. What are some of the things that you've learned through your mentors that you're now passing on, because you have a team, and I'm sure you have an assistant now, and so how do you go about leading others? And
that's definitely been a learning point, because I think within a content creator role, it's a very lonely industry. You're spending a lot of time by yourself, filming yourself, editing yourself, being sick of your voice and your face. Like sometimes at the end of the day, I'm just like, shut up. But I think as it's kind of grown, I remember the first day my assistant started, I had no idea how to delegate. I had no idea how to lead. I had no idea what to ask her to do. But over time, with trust and understanding that actually 2 heads, 2 hearts, 2 sets of hands are so much better than one, over time I've hopefully been able to pass on to her some knowledge that I have with encouragement. And my dad has grown businesses for his entire career, and when I was younger he was like a scary businessman, but now I'm like, everything in your brain, give it to me, like I want everything. And he comes out, he's a man of very few words. Sometimes you can be at a dinner with him and he won't say anything, and then he'll sit forward, say something, mic drop and sit back, and he really listens. And I have a note on my phone called Mark's Remarks, and so anytime he says something of value, I write it down and hopefully try and use it in a sentence or whatever it might be. And I think I'm just trying to learn all I can and pass that on to the team around me. And also I learn from them. Like, I think even if I were to go into a mentoring role, I would definitely learn from the people I'm mentoring. And I think that's so exciting to know that, like, you don't know everything and every day is a school day.
Right. It's also something sparked with me. It's like the 80-20 rule too. It's like be impeccable with your word, but it's like, what is the one thing, if you could just push one thing that you need to either focus your energy on or just identify something that might not be right, whether it's business or whatever. It's just having that ability, and a lot of that comes with experience, but having folks that have been there, done that, certainly does help. How do you find joy in the everyday? Can that be defined? Because I think I know that's on your tagline. That was one of the things that kind of felt that you were a good fit for Rocket Pod. But it's just something that's really interesting to us. And, you know, how can you define that? Do you seek that? You know, how do you, what's your philosophy on that?
Do you know what? There's something I read in a book recently, and there's an ancient proverb that speaks about 2 wolves living within all of us. And I'm probably going to butcher the exact wording of it.
That's good.
It's this really profound paragraph and passage. But basically, within all of us, there are 2 wolves. There is one that feeds our sadness, our anxiousness, our worry, probably more of the what's seen as negative emotions. And then there's the other one that sees joy and happiness and fulfillment. And the one that grows is the one you feed. And I think in previous lifetimes, in my teens, whatever, I was definitely feeding the negative wolf, and it wasn't working for me. So the only other option was to feed the one that is going to give me joy, right? And I think it is so important to feel a spectrum of emotions. And I am an extremely sensitive person, which means I will have the highest highs and the lowest lows, sometimes within the same day, sometimes within the same hour. But I'm so grateful for that and for feeling that spectrum of emotions, so that I can then channel my energy into the ones that feel nice in my body. And I think finding the joy in every day is actively looking for it. I've worked over the last, I want to say 10 years to find what works for me, and there's no one size fits all. Like, if I say, for me, my morning frothy coffee, looking at the sunlight is what sets me up for the day. Someone might think that's not going to help me, but you have to find what works for you and look for that joy and try new things, make mistakes and explore it, and then have this toolbox of things that you know you can call upon. So there's a few things that I've learned, again, through mentors or whatever, but for me, if I have a really good day, I will write a note to myself on my phone, and I will tap in notes, hey Steph, you've had an amazing day today, you were on Rocket Pod and you met some really inspiring guys, and I'll write it to myself. And then on days when I feel low and I feel like there's no point in anything and everything feels like a waste of time, I'll type into my phone, hey Steph, and there's messages from my past self that have had amazing days. And I have to read one of those back, close my eyes and visualize where I was, what I was feeling. It might not happen instantly, but it's just a reminder that actually everything will be okay, and everything moves in phases, and everything is constantly moving. You've just got to move through this negative emotion, feel it, but not live there.
Yeah, that's really good. And actually, it highlights the point where there's light, there's dark.
Yeah.
And all emotions are, well, they are us. They make up us. You know, it's what we do with them. And knowing that if we are having a bit of a hard time, those times will pass. And obviously, you know that. But it's also about self-awareness, isn't it? It's almost like we talked about with is it Neuros? Neuros, the owner of Quaker Street Studio where we're at. He was talking about folks hitting rock bottom to really kind of innovate, or it's almost like a lot of successful people, a lot of people that have kind of, I guess, got very strong self-awareness, I think, have had really hard times. You touched on, you were feeding the bad wolf, and perhaps that was when you had your eating disorder, and it's almost like you don't want to go back there. And I love the analogy you said, feeding the right wolf, but being aware of your emotions is a lot of folks. I mean, this is something. The journey I've been on. Obviously, it's a conversation for another day. Just living in your head and not being present, and in touch with yourself.
I heard a really good quote. I forgot who it was, but it was something like, the amount of positive experiences that you can go through in life is in direct correlation to how many negative experiences you're willing to accept.
Yeah, I love that.
And so you notice that, like, if you're rejecting to feel a lot of negative emotions, you won't then feel a lot of positive emotions. And the more you're allowing yourself to go into the negative, the more you'll experience the positive. So
it's pretty cool, isn't it? It is.
There's an amazing guy called Mo Gaudet that came up with the happiness equation. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but he's done some incredible speeches and podcasts, and he's actually interviewed a lot of people to say the most traumatic thing that has happened to you, if I were to take it away and you were to then lose everything you'd learned, everyone you'd met as a result of that, would you get rid of it? And something like 99% of them said absolutely not, because you learned so much from that rock bottom. And I always say that sometimes, well, in fact you do, you need to bend your knees before you jump. And sometimes that rock bottom is your bending knees so that you can jump and fly and see the amazing things that life has to offer.
Guys, if you're enjoying this episode, please could you just leave a review. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, you can leave a review in there. There's Spotify. We're going to put a question and also a poll, so please engage and then share this with anyone that you think this might help. Back to the episode. You've got a lot of titles, and businesswoman and ex-dancer and all of this, but if you could have one word or one title that encapsulates everything that you do and who you feel as a person, what would that be?
That's such a tricky question. It's so hard because I feel like I've had to reinvent myself multiple times. So throughout all of my childhood, adolescence, teens, I was Steph the dancer. And then when I no longer wasn't, I had a bit of an identity crisis, because I was like, well, if I'm not that, then who am I? Like, who is Steph the person? And it's only recently where I've been in certain environments like this or certain business meetings that people refer to me as like a wellness entrepreneur. So I guess that is probably what I would say to describe it. But I'd probably say I was fun employed. Like, I have a great time. It's a struggle, but it's enjoyable, and every day is different. So that's a really interesting question. And I think it's something I'm navigating and going through at the moment to try and really define that and what feels authentic to me.
Do you go through imposter syndrome?
Oh, all the time. Yeah. But I think I'm learning to accept it, because if I want to grow and scale to the person that I want to be, I'm always going to be in environments that scare me. Right. So imposter syndrome is not going to go anywhere. I think I just have to learn to accept it and manage it and not let it stop me from saying yes to things.
Yeah. It's almost like pushing your comfort zone, always growing.
Always.
So I mean, obviously you've got quite a following on your in your business and what you're doing. So it might be the same kind of thing, you know, the negativity, the trolls, the people that might not be positive. How do you deal with that? Do you just blow over it, or does it, I mean, have you learned to develop resilience, I think, when it comes to that? And maybe, I mean, you know, I can just imagine that you're going to have all different types of people that, you know, reach out to you or whatever on social. And
I mean,
comment on that at all?
It's so interesting because I could get 50 lovely, kind, beautiful messages. And I think when you speak about quite vulnerable topics, people feel like they know you more and they feel like they can really open up to you, and I can have beautiful, beautiful conversations. But then I'll get one negative one that really catches me off guard, that's all I will think about. And I think that's what the human brain does. Like, it really thinks about the negative things. And I've been on socials for such a long time, and I don't think I've ever had like a huge spike. It's always been kind of a steady climb. So I think I've built a resilience over time, and as I have exposure to a bigger audience, obviously there's more trolls that come with that. So that has grown over time. But how I deal with it now is as soon as I get a negative message, I ask someone like who I would say is in my reference group, whether that's my partner, my parents, my close friends. I'll say like, do you have the capacity to listen to something that's happened today? And if they do, I will tell them the comment that I've got, and I'll be like, do you agree? And I'll kind of talk through it. And some days, if it's something that I'm insecure about and someone has vocalized that, I feel it a lot deeper because I'm already having that subconscious conversation with myself, and an external person has just validated that. So they're the ones I struggle with. Whereas if someone were to say something negative that maybe I don't believe about myself, or it wasn't my intention, then I can detach from it so much easier. So it very much depends on where I am, how I'm feeling, if I agree with what they've said. I had a message recently, and I'd gone away to watch my partner run an ultramarathon in Chamonix, and it's terrifying when he goes up these mountains for 8 to 10 hours. All I have is a tracker just to know if he's still moving. Like, I've got no contact with him. It's terrifying. So I don't get to go away with him very often to be his little cheerleader. I love being a wag. But when I do, like, I love it because I know at the finish line, I'm the first person he'll see. I'll know he's safe, and it's great for my anxious thoughts. And I remember getting a message being like, why are you there? Like, just a trolly message being like, you're killing the planet by being there, blah, 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 blah. And I just went back and I was like, look, I completely agree. And like, I understand that your feelings about the environment, and I share those views, but at the same time, like, my partner was going to do this regardless. And I really want to be there for him, and I really want to support him. And it's a really scary venture to go through. They actually came back and they were like, yeah, do you know what? I'm really sorry. I've never messaged anyone negatively before. So sometimes I will engage, and not to justify myself, but to be like, do you know what? I hear you. I fully respect what you have to say. Here's my thought process behind it. Completely understand, whatever. Or like, for example, I like to post of someone that's quite controversial in the news just from doom scrolling. Sometimes I engage with posts because it's good for business to be seen liking and engaging with other things. Maybe didn't necessarily watch it, don't really read the news because I don't want to feed that negative wolf and that downward spiral of thoughts. Someone messaged me like, hey, I'm unfollowing you because you get engaged in this post and I didn't think it's something you believed in. And I went back and I watched the post and I was like, dear Lord, I do not agree with that. Like, that's a mistake on my bad. So I went back and I said, I completely understand why you've unfollowed me. Thank you for letting me know. I actually hadn't watched the news, hadn't watched this post. I have gone back and rectified it. Thank you for your honesty and your conversation. Showed awareness to it. And then she replied, like, oh, thank God. Like, it wasn't to be like, oh, follow me back. But I just wanted to say, I completely understand why you would. And I don't think you always need to kind of validate these trolls, but a lot of people receive negative messages and think, oh, it's a hater. Whereas I'm like, no, I want to be using my platform for good. If I'm not, can I take this as feedback? Is it someone just being nasty for the sake of being nasty? Or is it something I can take on board and hopefully improve myself and my business? Okay.
It's something you said that really interested me. So you said that before you have a conversation with your loved ones or whatever, you ask their permission whether they have the capacity to to actually hear this. I think that is really so good. Brilliant. I'm going to take that on. Really that's a little gold nugget, because I mean, you know, we've all done it, but I've definitely offloaded, and you know, and the person necessarily hasn't wanted to hear it. And it's like, why? And that's sometimes I think, why did I even have that conversation? Because you know.
Yeah.
And so thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
That's really nice. That's really nice.
I think sometimes when you're navigating through negative thoughts, you need someone to talk to. But my partner and I speak about it all the time. Sometimes he comes to me for advice and I have to be honest and be like, babe, I'm at 20%. Like, I have nothing to give you right now. I'm going to go, I'm going to eat something, and I'm going to come back. And then you're more present for them, which is going to help them more in the long run, right? So that is definitely something that I have looked into, whether it's a WhatsApp message being like, are you free for a chat? Do you have the capacity to listen right now? And it just sparks honest conversations. People say, not right now, but I will in 5, or quantifying that time. And it's been valuable in my journey, I think.
So something I'm really interested in actually is how you go about your daily routines or your weekly routines. I think that's really important, because with what you do, a lot that comes with it is freedom.
Yes.
And it does come down to you. So what do your days look like, and how do you go about structuring that so that you can get the most out of the time that you put in?
Yeah.
And also the idea of rest, how important rest is, and so that you're not just 100% full on the whole time. So
do you know what, it's definitely been a journey. I have gone through phases of extreme burnout and pushing myself, but I've gone through phases where I feel really unsettled and a little bit chaotic. And it's now come down to kind of discipline and my non-negotiables. So it's quite hard because sometimes I've got friends who are in office jobs who can leave their desk, leave their job, switch off. I don't feel like I have that switch off point. My mind is constantly ticking over. And if they have a day off, they'll message me and be like, oh, babe, you free for lunch tomorrow? And I have to be disciplined enough to be like, I'm really sorry, I work a 9 to 5. Maybe from my kitchen table or my home office, but I'm disciplined with these hours, and I've got non-negotiables in my life, set annual leave, set hours that I work, just to keep myself disciplined and on the straight and narrow. And I think it is important, like, I've learnt to schedule rest. There's a lot of times where I've been working all days of the week because I'm so passionate about what I do. There is a lot to it, and there is a lot that needs to be done. That'll be like, I'll just pick up on a Saturday and a Sunday. So now in my Google Calendar, it's do not book anything on this day, because I'll look at my week as a whole and think, okay, that's 4 days of absolute carnage where I'm getting minimal sleep, minimal rest. I am scheduling in a day. And when someone asks me a question now, instead of saying yes or no, I say, let me check. It gives me breathing space to check my diary, check the day before, check the day after, check the week as a whole before committing to something, because my biggest fear in life is letting someone down. I hate it. If I say yes to something, I want to be there. I hate being a flaky person. So there are certain non-negotiables within business, but in terms of structuring my day, I feel like I've got this rolling to-do list that never ends. And a friend of mine, Grace Beverly, has a concept called the productivity method, and she splits all of her to-do lists into projects, tasks, and ticks. So ticks are the quick things that take 1 to 2 minutes, not a lot of your energy, not a lot of your time. Then there's the tasks which take maybe 5 to 20, and then projects that take more. And I split it into that, and I try and like swallow the frog and get the big ones done. And then sometimes I'll start the day with a few quick ticks to build my confidence, to get on that adrenaline rush of I'm getting shit done, like whatever it might be. Sorry, I just swore. Can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, fine. And move from there. And I just have to be disciplined with my time. And sometimes it's brainstorming sessions, and I realise I have to have a full week on cruise. Or sometimes building up to events, it's 2 weeks just focusing on that event to get it done. But it's I love juggling lots of things at once. I thrive on that anxious energy.
Different, it's not the same mundane thing all the time.
And I think I have to keep my brain overstimulated at all times. But there are certain non-negotiable rules that I do have.
When it comes to tasks and, you know, even the quick ticks,
yes,
do you distinguish between your work and your personal actions? Do you put them all together?
I do
or do you
put them all
separate
together.
Okay.
Because in sometimes, like say for example, we've come back from a trip and there's loads of washing. I know I put a wash on and it's done for 45 minutes to an hour, whatever it might be. So I will incorporate that within...
In the flow.
Okay,
yeah. I think
so I'll write that
smart
on the list, but also use that as a timer. So like, say if I know one of my projects is going to take 45 minutes, I have to get it done by the time that wash is done. And I set myself timers all the time. And the tomato theory of 20 minutes work, 10 minutes standing up, doing whatever you need to. That's it, isn't it? Pomodoro theory, not tomato. Same thing though, isn't it? But in that sense, like, I'm constantly, I love a task. I love it. Like, it's almost a competition with myself.
Yeah.
I've got 20 minutes to focus. Unless I tell myself and repeat in my mind, you are doing this now, you are doing this now, I will get distracted and then get nothing done.
Yeah.
So I've had to learn with trial and error what works for me, what works for my routine. For me, notifications off. Can't have a single one on, because the moment it dings, my attention is gone, and then it takes me a long time to get back to the task at hand.
Do you have a way of, like, at the end of the day when you're done, or for the week if you're done, a way of like switching off? Because I actually find it hard, that moment of, okay, now I'm not working. Stop thinking about work. Stop thinking about what you have to do. You have time to chill now. Just chill. So do you have a way, or does it just come naturally to you?
There's a few things. So for me, showers, I know this sounds weird, I love a shower. There's no tech, there's no distraction, there's no conversation. You can get lost in your mind for however long you're in the shower for. So my boyfriend knows if I'm going to the shower, I'm going to just switch off. And there's like a visualization you can do where you're like letting everything wash over you, every negative emotion, any anxiety. Like, we got back, I can't remember where we'd gone. We'd gone somewhere and I'd been really riled up with an emotion. And we'd done an exercise class and it hadn't made me switch off. And my boyfriend went, right, you're going to the shower and you're coming back a happier person. I went, yeah, I am. So I marched upstairs really angry and aggressive, turned on the shower really angry and aggressive. The moment I stepped out, I actively chose to be a different person.
That's great. Wash it away.
Just telling myself, like, be happy, like, not toxic positivity, but let it go. Put the weight down, let it go. It's not worth it. And I think that definitely helps. Also, unconventional trash TV. Sometimes my mind is going, and I'll put on a 20-minute episode of Schitt's Creek. I love that show for switching off. It's like a comfort show. And I read a study recently about how people with anxiety sometimes rewatch the same shows because they know the plot, they know the characters. You can be at ease. It stops me scrolling. It stops me consuming things that I don't want to see. And something like that that's 20 minutes, switch off, and then I'm ready to rest and do what I need to do.
Yeah, mine's The Office, the US.
Oh, yeah, the US Office.
Yeah. Seen it like 10 times.
Relationship with work-life balance, do you believe in it? Because, I mean, your mind, I mean, I have a similar affliction as far as my mind never stops.
Yeah.
I mean, I've actually stopped texting Xander after 7. For my own sake. No, that's good. Do you believe in work-life balance, or do you think it comes in seasons? I mean, obviously you've been through lots of different cycles and you've tried different things.
I'll be honest, I'm fighting for it, but I don't know if it's going to exist within my life. I believe in presence, and if I'm out for dinner with family, with friends, with my partner, I will be present there. Will I probably do a bit of work on the way there and maybe on the way home? Most definitely. Maybe that's my version of work-life balance. I will pick up things and it's just because I'm so passionate about what I do. It's all I think about. And actually, on certain holidays, if we're just in a villa chilling by the pool, I'll do a bit in the morning and then I'll switch off, and I'll try and, because otherwise I come back and I'm like, I have missed 8 days of stuff and it's going to be more overwhelming, and you get that kind of like Sunday night fear of all the things that's looming over you. Whereas actually, I find it very productive on a Sunday night to write my to-do list for the Monday. Obviously, Sunday's a day of rest, but I'm like, no, I'm getting ahead, and that feels like self-care to me. Tidying up, organising myself, preparing for the week ahead. That then makes me feel calmer anyway. So I think I try and make sure I do switch off in terms of being there, being present, not being distracted by my Apple Watch pinging off or my phone pinging off, but also knowing that if I go to the bathroom and I need to check something, I can get back to it really quickly and then go and be present again. So I think it's my own version of.
Yeah, everyone's different.
Yeah, right, absolutely.
Yeah. Speaking of presence, I'm safe to assume maybe you're a bit spiritual and into all of that side of things. Sure. But everybody's got their own way of understanding and implementing, like, the law of attraction and manifestation and stuff like that. So what's your take on that? How do you sort of approach bringing forth what you want to achieve and in an effective way?
I write down goals a lot. So at the end of every month, I review the goals previous and I write them for the following month. And I don't mean like, I don't think that everything is possible of being done in a month, but I split them up into kind of personal goals, work goals, and financial goals. Being self-employed, I've got certain targets that I need to hit. And I am almost in control of that a lot of the time in terms of, am I marketing myself in the right way? Have I reached out for enough campaigns? Have I accepted enough
Right.
campaigns? And I'll sit and I'll really sit through them. And sometimes my personal goals are making sure I get 8 hours of sleep a night, or 6 to 8 hours, or making sure I drink enough water or eating enough food. And they're consistent goals that I write down month on month on month. Sometimes it's, have I had 1 day off a week this week? Have I done one social plan? Have I left the house at least once every day? Because obviously working from home.
Right, you've stayed there.
Sometimes when the postman knocks on the door, I'm like, hi, how are you? What have you been up to? Tell me everything. So it's like making sure that I visualize and manifest, and it goes up to bigger goals, like whether it's being on the property ladder, or it's something that is like, for me, it was having a full-time employee was on my vision board for so long. And I'm such a visual person that I have to be able to see something in my mind. So I know this sounds really spiritual and a little bit woo, but like if I really want something, I will sit and just think about it for 5 minutes when I'm making these goals and be like, if I can see it, I can make it happen.
Yep.
And what's going to get me to that, and breaking it from this big whopping terrifying goal into smaller ones that feel manageable and feel realistic. But I do believe that there's no point in aspiring to nothing. Like you have to be able to see where you're going and carve that path. And it might be straight sometimes, it might be really, really winding. And sometimes your dreams evolve as a result of what comes on the way to them. And that's okay as well. But no, I really, really believe in all of that.
Cool.
For our listeners out there that don't know you,
Yes.
there might be quite a number that don't, because it's a different audience. What advice do you have for them? Anything you would like to tell them? Any message that you want to send them, based on your experiences so far?
Yeah. I first want to just say, whatever you are feeling, that feeling and emotion is valid. Never let anyone tell you otherwise. Whatever you're moving through is yours to own it and to navigate. And don't pick up other people's baggage whilst you're moving through your own and putting your own down. I think sometimes you can be carrying the weight of other people's opinions, expectations and perceptions of you, and just learn to put that down to reorganize your own. There's so much power in talking to people, reaching out to people, journaling, exploring yourself and your sense of self, and working on who you are as a person, whether that's in your own time, with a therapist, with a loved one. And I think once you understand that and you learn to fully understand who you are at your core, you can then open yourself up to the beauty and expansion of life. And I think sometimes that comes through self-exploration. And that's what I'd encourage you to do. Who are you? Like I had to learn who I was without the label of dancer. Who was Steph? Who was Steph that wasn't the people pleaser? Removing the labels and understanding who you are at your core will unlock incredible opportunity.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
That's nicely put. Wow, that's amazing.
Cool.
Fantastic. So some of the crew would love to. So okay. In fact, I'll wait on that question. I'll just.
Yeah. We
So,
thought it would be.
So Harry here is at the.
Yes.
So Harry here is at the London
London Screen Academy.
Screen
Amazing.
Academy. Like wants to be a producer of comedies.
Yeah, hopefully want to be directing comedies and filming comedy films, but I've done
amazing.
some like short films and stuff
Yeah.
on my own. But I think coming from like me and Morris's side of things, because like he does lots of videography and stuff, and we do this together. I tend to have a lot on throughout the week because I work on weekends at 17.
Yeah.
I have school that I'm very passionate. It's not like a normal school. I don't really care about it. It's like I'm very passionate towards that.
Yeah.
And then I have extra things on top of this. So I'd say that having like lots of workload, how do you, as someone who is like constantly working, constantly having to stay on top of things, social media being such a like a quick moving thing.
Yeah.
I was just wondering what sort of stuff you do to keep yourself under like not getting buried and stuff.
Yeah. I think if you can, like I said, scheduling in an evening, a morning off for yourself. I used to think that no, if I just keep sprinting, keep pushing, everything will get done. When actually, when you rest, your brain opens up to more creativity, more discipline, and you almost regain that motivation. So I think scheduling in time to do nothing is so beneficial. And I learned that the hard way from literally working all hours of the week. And then the moment I scheduled in that day, I was like, oh, I have an idea again. Oh, I've got creativity back. I think also finding passions outside of your passions that are aligned with work. I think as a generation, a lot of us monetize every single venture that we go through, which is amazing that we have the opportunity to do that as millennials, Gen Zs, whatever, but try and find things that aren't associated with your work. Which might be hard because I was going to say like going to the movies, but you're already doing screen stuff, but just anything that is a passion outside of it that lights you up, so that when you go, because work isn't always going to be smooth and easy, right? So sometimes monetizing your passions can knock your confidence to lose your passions. So making sure you have enough outside of that feeds you as well, and not letting it completely consume your every thought and your every being. But also just knowing your worth throughout it. It must be hard being in a year of people trying to do exactly what you want to do, but just know you're worthy of being at that school, you're talented enough to be there, keep driving towards your passion, and you'll 100% do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I had a question.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask, you've come really far, you're a big influencer. I was going to say, like, what was some advice you would give your 17-year-old self, if you could?
That's a really good question. Not being afraid of making mistakes. I think I was such a perfectionist. I didn't want to let down anyone involved. I didn't want to let myself down. I was so scared of slipping up. But I think sometimes we forget we're all experiencing life for the first time, and making those mistakes. I have learnt more from the mistakes than the things that have gone right.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it can feel like the end of the world, like the smallest thing happens and it feels debilitating and exhausting, but the lessons that come from it are so valuable. And I think learning to find your voice, as I think with social media, with COVID, I've noticed a lot with my younger cousins who are in their teens that they don't always speak up in situations, they don't get involved because it's so much easier to be internalised on a phone. I'd say look up, get involved, make eye contact, ask questions. The people older than you know so much more than you in many ways. You know more than them in many ways too, so don't think they know everything, but you can learn so much from them. They're not going to be here forever. Ask every question you think of and write it down.
I was just thinking, like, you do a lot of like social media and stuff online. I was just thinking, do you feel like you have to like do everything well, like all the time? Like, how do you get things done and like know what you're doing?
Yeah, that's a hard question, because especially I think with Instagram, everyone sees it as like people engage with beautiful polished images, right? And it's hard to like slip up and mess up. But I think the only reason I've grown a following is because I've tried to show up as much of my authentic self as possible. There's still an element of me setting up a camera, planning what I'm going to do, saying what I'm going to say. But I think there is such amazing connections that come from being raw and honest. So trying to break that fourth wall as much as possible, trying to reply to every DM. Like, I remember, do you know the musician Kalani? The artist? Yeah. She's amazing, like R&B-esque American singer. She's incredible. I went to see her in like 2015, and I was going through like a horrible time with my mental health, and I wasn't going to go to the gig, but I had all of the tickets for me and my 4 friends, so I had to give everyone the tickets. Anyway, I DM'd her afterwards. So embarrassing, literally my entire life story. Like, it was across, like, you know when you send one message, it says 2 full and you go again? Yeah. I sent her that, no idea why. Yeah. She replied. Wow. And to me, like, her acknowledging my existence and acknowledging my message, and she said something that showed she'd read the message, I was like, oh my God, like, this is amazing. And I'm not saying that I am on a pedestal like Kalani, but if someone messages me something raw and vulnerable, when I have the capacity to, I will read it and I will respond, because sometimes that acknowledgement of someone's awareness is all they need in that moment. And I hope that that comes across in my social media. And I think whatever you go into, as long as you can show up as the most authentic version of yourself, it will feel better within your body, but I think hopefully it's received better as well. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
I think it's brilliant. I think you attract the right people in your life. If you can be yourself,
I think so.
You know, that's really wonderful. Well, I think we're out of time.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Great sport, amazing sport.
I'm so glad that I can make it work as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Just quickly, how do people find you?
Oh, yes.
So, yes, we've got to have that. How do people find you? So,
I'm on Instagram at Steph Elswood, and then the brand is Drink Carouse.
Okay.
Carouse.
Fantastic. We'll have to check it out. I have to go and buy some.
Yeah, but I should have bought some with me. I'm so glad to.
Next time. We have to do,
Next time for sure.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Rocket Pod. Steph was brilliant. The energy in the room was contagious. Stephanie really did speak from the heart. Loved the bit about, either a choice, do we feed the bad wolf or the good wolf, as far as our really kind of understanding our emotions. We talked a lot about being very self-aware, and then almost anticipating what to do with our emotions when we have them. It hasn't been an easy journey, but it's wonderful to see how someone like Steph can transition from a dancer to then, really being aware of who she is, and then using that energy to catapult her to, getting out there in the world, in the world of wellness, and just being herself really, and sharing her journey with the world. So yeah, thank you so much, Steph, for coming on to Rocket Pod. We really appreciated it, and we also appreciated the advice you gave to my daughter Penelope, and also the other young crew, all are 17, and all very talented. So it was really about embracing failure. They're almost little stepping stones, and then just being comfortable with that. We'd love it if you could jump over to whatever platform you're listening to Rocket Pod on and leave a review, share, like, anything you can do to really kind of raise awareness of the work we're doing, and this helps us find other cool, inspiring guests, and they can share their wisdom with you. So really appreciate your support. Thanks again, everybody, and we look forward to seeing you next time.